That isn't terrible.
Let's get into it. 1, 2, 3.
Well, hello, and welcome to My Whiskey Den, your favorite public access whiskey review show where craft whiskey is king. Before we go any further, I want to thank everyone in the chat. I already see a bunch of comments. Mine's running slow. I'm a little behind. We want to thank you all for stopping in. We want to know what you're drinking. Mike, what do we usually tell people before we go any further in the stream?
Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, share, hit that bell notification. Comment in the chat if you're watching live to interact with all the really nice people. If you're watching this after the fact, please comment down below, leave some feedback. Don't forget to hit that like on the video.
And we are lucky enough tonight because we are happy to welcome the multi-award-winning whiskey tag team that has been crushing the releases for years. They have been putting the fear in big whiskey. We are talking about the Dirty Distilling Boys from Denison, Texas, the ginger sensation, Jonathan and Robert Likarish. Thank you for coming on the show. We greatly appreciate it, and we are happy to be talking about some of the releases that we have here in front of us today. What do you guys have in your glasses? Is another question. Oh, wait. I think we all decided to start with Esoteric, right?
There you go. We're all enjoying that low 97 proof that we put out there.
Baby steps.
That is
practically water.
Yeah, you need to work your way up.
Now, with Esoteric, this is one of the ones that is kind of a put-together release. From, I don't want to say, is it from leftover barrels? Or is it just... How does that work?
Well, it's kind of left over in the fact that we put together the original blend back in 2018, and then what we ended up doing was we only bottled half of it, and then we re-barreled that first half. So is it left over? Yeah, but it was left over on purpose. So
that's cool.
It's experimental whiskey. So the whiskey that we use for Esoteric isn't slated for Harbinger or Promethean or any of those other whiskeys. It's something that because every year, again, there's a little ADD at the distillery, and I tell Jonathan he can do 6 experiments a year, and that usually turns out to about 10, because he usually runs through the 6 or more. We usually run through the 6 by June or July, and then he gets a seed catalog in the fall, and next thing I know, we got bags of corn showing up at the distillery. Or what was in this last one was the purple Prairie barley, right, Jonathan? I think that was.
We got that one. I got a much more farrow in. So
some of the weeded. Yeah.
And I was going to say that was actually one of the grains I actually hadn't heard of before. Was the purple Prairie barley. Now that's probably my fault because I haven't been delving in as much as I should have. But there's purple, blue, whatever corn, but you don't always hear that about barley. So it kind of threw me for a loop. What is kind of special about the purple Prairie barley?
Well, we decided we were going to start branching out from corn and start playing with some other grains. And so kind of the idea came to us one day. We said, hey, I wonder if there's purple anything else. And so we just started looking it up and ended up there was purple Prairie barley in Montana. Our family, our parents originally from Montana. So we really liked the whole tie in there to kind of going back to the roots, deeper roots than where we are here. And so we decided to bring in some test batched it. Ironically, some of the flavors that are in purple corn actually are very similar to those in purple barley. Now, it's by no means the exact same thing, but we could see kind of a parallel, and it was interesting. We kept joking that we were going to have to do one with all purple grains and call it purple grain. There's some
purple drink.
Yeah. Purple grain. Not purple drink. Although that would be great too.
I feel like that one will sell out pretty quickly.
Yeah, probably yes.
Won't last long. Jonathan, so again, the history of of that grain a little bit better than I do. Was it originally from Egypt? Was the?
Well, I love this story because it can be complete and utter nonsense. And so, but I love to repeat it. So supposedly, we read somewhere that it was from a failed camel trading route that went across the land bridge at one point in time, because the only other place that really found this purple prairie barley was in tombs in Egypt. So it's so ridiculous. It just needs to be retold over and over again. Yes.
I was gonna say, sometimes you gotta lean into that stuff. That's just fun.
Oh, yeah.
I mean,
It's definitely where it came from.
Isn't that a thing though with like seed catalogs and stuff? Some of the stories behind the grains are just as bad as some of these distilleries that start up and say, you know, we're the heirs to Al Capone or whatever kind of thing. I mean, you got stories all over the place, and
Same
whether
vein.
it's
Yeah,
true or
same
not,
vein.
yeah.
I like to tell people on tours that that in the liquor industry, it's either a half truth or just a flat out lie. It's usually one or the other that you're being told. So.
Sorry. we may have run into a few of those. That's just the way things work every now and then.
Yeah.
But I was gonna say this actually. I love the fact that you have so many different grains going into it already. I mean, you have the yellow dent, the green Oaxacan, some caramel oatmeal, malt, caramel malted wheat, and the purple prairie bar. I like the way, like you said, this is going to continue to kind of grow and get like depth and unique flavor every time that you guys are kind of bringing it out. So I like the way you're going about it, and I was pretty impressed by it. I mean, I think we all were. So,
Yeah.
But now, Mike, Ben, do you have a quick couple nose notes for the people that didn't catch the little review before? Or I can just let you talk too. I don't have to be the rambler. I can just be quiet for a little bit. Let you guys ask a question or two.
You can. Well, I do actually. I do. I have a question, but there's one thing in which I was going to bring it up, and most of the people here know Scotch Trooper. Some people have heard who follow, especially Scotch Test Dummies. Brett Friends, who is Scotch Trooper, who did those fantastic photos, merging the action figures, Star Wars action figures with whiskey bottles. And at one time actually worked for ASW Distillery. He actually has entered into hospice. So there is a GoFundMe that is still up, that was put up when he was starting to go through treatment. So I would encourage anybody, as the dummy said the other night, if you got $5, he has stage 4 pancreatic cancer, and as some of you know, that's how I lost my wife. So it's kind of personal. So if you do have some money that you can give, the family's going to need it. And those images that he put up have been copied by many people, and they are going to last a long time. And he's going to leave a legacy not only with his family but with his images in the whiskey world. So if you would do that, I would appreciate that.
We'll add a link to that in the description later as well too. So,
Okay.
Yeah.
So my question that I have is, so Jonathan, you do the naming of all the bottles, right?
Most, yeah.
And you're the distiller. So what the hell does Robert do?
You heard the part about half truths and lies, right? We need one of those guys.
Okay.
He's the truth, I'm the lie, and it kind of equals out. It's kind of
Okay.
Someone's got to drink all the whiskey. Come on.
No, Robert handles a lot of the stuff I don't want to, so that does work out pretty well. He does a lot of the federal paperwork, contracts, dealing with distributors. Robert actually does the dirty jobs at the distillery.
Mitch was saying when he gives tours, he tells the truth, and people get mad at him.
I keep telling everybody that I just want to have a tour where I just make up random crap to see if anybody's actually paying any attention to what I'm saying.
Wouldn't surprise me if he's done it once or twice.
On this one, I was surprised how much I liked I thought the green Oaxacan corn was coming through more, so that's because I had I think it was a hubris that was mostly that a little while beforehand, but I'm really getting that on the flavor of the Esoteric in this one. It's coming through more so for me. I just thought it is neat how you guys get a swirl of different flavors going on the inside on this one. So I just wanted to touch base on that before we would move to a different one. You guys just have a bunch of really cool stuff coming out. So it's hard to pick what you want to dance around and spend time on, but there's 2 or 3 that we have several questions on that will.
Yeah.
Oh, don't worry. You haven't even seen half the releases for this year.
That's a whole nother question.
About the Esoteric. Do you guys want Esoteric to go a certain way, or are you just going to kind of let it go?
It's more of a creative outlet for Jonathan. I would say the best way is that it's whenever we decide it's time for it to come. Because the original release was 2018. We didn't do it again until this December. So it went 2 years without being released. So it could be another 2 years before it comes back. It just depends on if there's something cool enough in the warehouse for him to deem worthy of blending in and playing with.
Okay.
I think it's one of the most fun because the oak is so much heavier, even though it is a lower proof. That again, you look at it versus like Promethean or 100 proof bourbon, and it's darker than Promethean by quite a bit. Mm-hmm. And it's the oak profile just shines through because it does have that older whiskey in it. It does have, even though it's an quote unquote American whiskey, so you're in a whole different category technically. But
you guys are doing the French oak with this one?
No, I don't think there's any French.
No, the only thing we've really had French oak in was Icor.
Okay.
A while back.
Should be
I'm trying to think
if
there might be some Euro oak in there, but if there is, this is going to be predominantly American oak.
Okay. That's interesting because for me, some of the flavor notes that I pull from it remind me of like a French oak influence on something.
I can definitely see that.
Are there
some coffee, there's some chocolate, there's some fruity ale notes that I find really interesting.
That purple Prairie barley was actually, I think, in a Euro oak. The ones that we're adding into it. So that's probably where you're getting that. That Euro oak and the French have a lot of similarities in certain aspects, and a lot of those flavors that you're referencing are found in there as well.
Yeah, with French, I usually, for me, I get a like a mocha, a chocolate coffee note that just is for me is telltale French oak, and that's what I'm getting from this a little bit. So that's what I found pretty interesting. And two, there's this malted ale character to it I think is really fascinating in there too.
I think that's probably coming from that caramel malted wheat that was in there on the original batch. Okay. I love that stuff. So that's actually on that malted wheat. We're actually going to do some more of that this year. Probably some in conjunction with some of that farrow wheat to probably eventually put out a wheated version. So
cool.
All right, that's cool because we like a lot of stuff that's been like caramel and malted between barley and wheat and stuff. But I'm just saying that what comes out of it, we seem to like, but it's hard to find something that has more than like 10% of it in it. And even then, you can tell you're getting a decent punch of flavor from that either 5 or 10% that someone has in the mix. So
yeah.
Would I be right in saying if you went higher than that 10%, typically with like a chocolate malt or a caramel malt, it's going to pretty much dominate the flavor or the palate?
A little bit goes a long way when it comes to those malted grains. I mean, it's kind of like in beer when you think that even when they're doing some of those stouts, there's a much smaller percentage of that, that burnt grain, the best way the chocolate malts, if you will. And so with distilling, it's even because what we do is just concentrate flavor. And that's basically what the still does. So it amps that up even more. So a lot of times if you use a brewer's mash bill, you end up with something that's just completely dominated by that flavor.
Gotcha.
So you mentioned the wheat, or wheated whiskey. Anything else you want to mention?
On wheated whiskey?
Wheated whiskey or wheated whiskey?
Or if there's anything else that you can mention that's coming out.
Well, Well, I'm actually hoping to do a blend this year that actually has some of these weeded mash bills. We have done very few weeded bourbons, but we have some that I'm hoping to put a blend together this year, and it may be a TriBarrel that might come out. What do we say, this summer?
Yeah.
So that's we're looking at maybe doing at least 2 TriBarrels a year, and we may work that into doing 4 a year.
Wow.
So this one would be different than kind of the TriBarrel we're going to get to here in a minute, just from the standpoint of it is going to be a little bit lighter, but that's also the weeded kind of mash bills really kind of lean into kind of more of a summery vibe for me. And so that kind of dark brooding TriBarrel flavor profile maybe isn't the best thing to drop in June.
Especially in Texas.
Yeah. I'd still drink it, but
Yeah.
The proof will probably still be up there.
Hey, good to drop an ice cube into, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's
Need
right.
to cool down.
One of those beautiful 130 proof summer whiskeys.
There you go.
Sounds great.
I don't mind though. They can stick around till winter too. You need that little pick me up when you go outside every now and then.
That's right.
Hey,
That's right.
high proof makes a kick-ass old fashioned. So there you go.
Now, if we were going up ABV wise, I think the next one we had was the Saints Alley. You guys want to go to that one, or did you want to do like Hubris or something else beforehand?
Let's jump in. Let's jump in with Saints Alley.
All right. This one.
I don't even have a real bottle. So,
So I guess I should preface this one. Saints Alley, we're going to be doing the distillery release kind of May time period.
Okay.
And then it should go nationwide, or mostly nationwide, in July is kind of the launch. And so you guys are tasting the first one, but there's actually going to be 3 that we're going to be dropping. So the first one that he's tasting that you guys are tasting right now is the Armagnac finish. We're also going to be dropping a port and cognac finish and a French rum finish as well.
Ooh.
Oh. Okay. Now, are you using the same mash bill for all of them, and
It's
just
the same mash bill, different finishes?
Okay.
Now, it's what's being, again, and you're talking the finishing casks are a little bit different, obviously quite a bit different from that, but the blends, how strong they are, again, this one is 10% Ironroot, 90% the MGP high rye mash bill, but the other ones, it may get shifted a little bit depending on flavor profile.
Okay. And then I was going to say, will it just, are you going to go after each of the alleys that's being renamed? Is that going to be each release is a different alley?
No, this one's the one you guys are tasting is going to be called the Herald.
Yep.
The port cognac finish will be Saints Alley, the flag bearer on that, and then the rum finish is going to be called the Heretic.
Okay.
So,
Sweet.
Okay.
Do we get a graphic comic edition to go along with the releases?
That
All
one.
these-
I'll work
all
on
these
that in my spare
characters.
time.
Yeah.
doodling by moonlight, running the still.
Do you like it in crayon?
There you go.
And this was also one that you guys worked with Chris from Liquor Hound, Chris Trevino, to kind of come out with. Now, one of the questions when we were talking earlier about stuff was there a reason you went with such a high percentage of MGP in this versus your own stuff? We were thinking maybe that's what you had to do to kind of get the rye spice to kick through maybe a little bit, but that we were just intrigued. We got looking at what it was and kind of seeing where that laid out, and we were intrigued as to how you guys kind of got to the 90-10 percentage on these ones.
There was a couple things we were looking at on the blend for that one. Namely, when you start finishing whiskey, you got to be concerned about the tannin content you're going to pull. And so some of it, if we put too much of ours in there and we don't have the proof quite right, you can actually dry it out pretty quickly. And so that was of concern going into it. Also, we are going to be dropping a Ironroot solely in finishing barrels later on, and we didn't want to get too close to that either.
Okay.
And so there's a couple things just wanting to kind of separate out the different profiles for sure. and also wanting to make sure that we got the balance in the whiskey correct as far as tannin and sweetness, etc. The MGP can actually balance out a lot of tannin from that standpoint, because it is actually really sweet when you're just playing with that distillate. So it's actually sweeter than Ironroot, which kind of surprised us going into it. So
yeah, the 6-year-old MGP that we're using has that crazy dichotomy where you're getting that young rye, that vibrant rye that runs through it, but then it has a lot of sweetness that runs through it as well. So the whole goal with the Ironroot addition to it is really just rounding it out, and then letting it set in those Armagnac casks. So part of it, again, a lot of it was just concern over tannin content. If we started running some of our older, because we are using 4-year-old Ironroot in it, and so once we start hitting 4 years old with our own distillate, the tannin starting to build at that point. So we have to be very, very careful with anything 4 years and older. And so that's really what the main concern was with that, is that going higher than 10% on that particular blend, especially now with the rum, it's a little bit different because we're not dealing with French or kind of Spanish oak, which tends to have that much stronger tannin presence within the barrel. Even after they've been used for a number of years, they still are quite punchy.
That answers one of the questions I was going to bring up anyway. So that was perfect, kind of with that tannic quality. We'll get to that in a little bit, because it kind of does pull out something we were playing with.
Yeah. So with this collaboration with, or would you call the collaboration really with MGP, or is it really?
What's that with MGP?
Well, you know what I mean. It's a, or using, working with blending with somebody else's. Is that something you guys are going to do more of that with other distilleries, or?
Oh yeah, we actually. I guess we'll go ahead and drop this now as well. Jonathan has been very, very busy in the blending lab here this last kind of 6 months. We've been playing around, and we got asked by a gentleman who was an ex-Major League Baseball player to do a blend for him. But he wanted to do Texas whiskeys only. And so they came to us and asked us to put it together. And so Jonathan, for the better part of 7 months, has really been playing around with the blend. And so I think the very first release is going to be coming out in March. And it's called a release that's going to be called Grayson, the county that we're in. Okay. And it's Lone Elm, Balcones, Ironroot for the first one. And then the second one we're actually going to be adding in Still Austin as well.
Wow.
So it's been kind of a huge honor, because again, you had the guys from Balcones, all of them are trusting us with their stock to do some really fun stuff. And I mean, Lone Elm really came to the table and gave us a lot of really fun things to play with. I think Jonathan, when he went down there and was picking out barrels, he fell in love with one barrel, and they let us take it, and it was a 7-year-old Lone Elm, which was absolutely crazy. Again, it's one of those whiskeys, when you pull it out of the barrel or you have it in a glass, there is no light getting through that that particular. So, Jonathan, you could talk a little bit more about your kind of process of selecting those whiskeys and playing around with those. But
that's crazy.
Basically, we were going to bring in the other two for specific purposes, and then kind of just fit the Ironroot around it, kind of like a puzzle piece, once we got everything else settled. And so we knew Lone Elm, they've got kind of all these big tannic notes. They've got the great wood notes. They've got dark chocolates and coffees and some anise notes. And so those guys were really going to kind of bring a lot of that kind of depth from on the back end to what we were looking at. And then from Balcones, we ended up using some of their blue corn bourbon. And the blue corn bourbon actually has these wonderful stone fruit notes that I really like. And so I kind of wanted to bring those in, and then kind of prop those up with some Ironroot. And so basically that was the plan going into it. It's I think this first blend is a majority our stuff. It'll be interesting to see once we start blending other things in there, how all those ratios change. But they decided, we gave them all these options, and they decided 119.4 proof was where it was at. So we're going to go in there rocking 119.4.
And about how long do you let something like that marry together after you kind of blend it before you guys decide to release it? I mean,
we did actual multiple marryings of it. So we married each individual distillery's liquid together first, and then we started marrying them together after that in one big vat. But so I think the first one we kind of married all the different barrels, the separate distilleries together for 3-4 months.
okay.
And then the other ones, it's been vatted all together now for about the same time frame. And then we actually finally filtered it out recently. So there's
that was the Lone Elm. Again, when we're talking that it's so dark, normally we can go through entire tank and through the filter and use one set of pads. There was so much tannin and so much char in this
that
blend.
7-year-old. Yeah.
It went through how many 3 sets of pads, Jonathan? I think is
Yeah.
what you said. So I don't know if you call that Lincoln County process, but it's damn near close by the time you get through doing that.
We had to do that with Icor, the 5th anniversary Icor, because when it went into that French oak, it had a very similar kind of sediment to it.
Yeah.
It made it taste delicious, but yeah, it was a little bit of a chore getting out of Icor. And then, so it's been sitting like that, and it's sitting about 1 degree higher than where it's going to be when we go to bottle right now. And so it's sitting at a really good place. We got a really good idea what it's going to finally taste like, and we're really excited just to kind of. You guys probably already know this, but when you go to bottle, it'll take a while to settle in the bottle too. So we say things don't really change in the bottle unless you leave just a little bit in the bottom of it. But in general, right after we bottle, it will change for the next 2 months. It actually kind of aggravate that whiskey by running it through a bottling machine and running air through it and all these things. And so it's not for a couple months until it actually chills back out. So in an ideal world, we would actually bottle things and then let them sit for 6 months before we let them out. But, it's a business. So that's storage space.
Yeah.
Someone can let it age on their shelf. It doesn't have to be yours.
That's right. That's why I try to tell people, I'm like, hey, this just got bottled this week, so you can pop it and drink it tonight, but really leave it for about 4 weeks or so, and they just kind of generally look at me and go, yeah, it's not happening. So,
it's a business too.
I'll be back for the next bottle in 4 weeks. I'm not going to wait that long. Now, there were a couple questions I missed before, so I'm just going to spin back. Mitch is wondering if you have to, or he says, I have to get way too nerdy for a bit. When you see seeds to order, do you get a breakdown of the grains, e.g., subtle extract, GN producers, distillate powder, protein, or moisture? Basically, do you get a breakdown when you're looking at the grain?
Not in a seed catalog. So if we order from somebody like MBS Seed or something like that, they have all that information. They'll send it out for testing. Normally with the seed catalog, it just basically will tell you kind of what it's generally used for, basically growing conditions, the yields of things that you typically get. What we're really looking for when we're looking in the seed catalog is if it has any type of tasting note, because most of them are like good corn flavor. And you're like, man, that's not it. But if it has something where it has an actual like tasting note to it, those are the ones where we're really kind of interested in seeing where that goes.
And when we pull from the seed catalog, it's not like malt or anything like that, like barley malt, which again, when you're ordering barley malt, you will get the full breakdowns because the maltsters know that grain and they know what you're going to use it for. So they have all that information. Sometimes these seed catalogs, it's just random, farmer out here just says he has this, 100 pounds for sale this year. And that's what you end up dealing with rather than someone who's really grown it. And so that's what a lot of times when we bring it in, we'll do a test run with it before we start bringing it to farmers and stuff like that. because once we go into a more production mode with the grain, it's going to go to actually the mill that's about 30 miles from us that does a lot of our milling, and they do the full testing of all the grain for alpha toxins, and we get all that information from the mill because they'll bring it in and test it for us.
That's awesome that they do that. So, and I got one more.
It is scary, but it is.
Got one more from John. It was his question. Corn whiskey must have new uncharred or used oak. Is there a definition on how used a barrel needs to be? Could it have been a new barrel used for 5 minutes, where you kind of do the PBR thing to it?
I've got this
put it in reverse.
I've got the lawyer answer here for this. So,
oh, good.
Yeah,
I'm gonna go check the still real fast.
So, John, the definition of corn whiskey is only it is basically not a brand new charred oak cask. So, brand new literally means brand new. There's some distilleries, which I will not name, whose philosophy initially, especially back in the day, was I'm going to make a corn whiskey, but I want a ton of oak to be able to use. So they literally would just pour spirit into the barrel, roll it around just to make sure it was sealed properly, and then dump the spirit out and fill it with the new make. And that's enough to consider it no longer a brand new charred oak cask. So yeah, you can use that, or you could just use a toasted cask. I think some of our first corn whiskeys were in just toasted casks rather than used casks. A lot of people ask us like how we got a corn whiskey. That was one of our first 20 barrels laid down, and that was because the very first ones we did were all toasted barrels rather than used casks. So some of those initial corn whiskey batches from us did have a number of toasted cask uses on those. So, yeah.
Okay. I got a question while you have your lawyer hat on.
Oh, geez.
So from a distiller's perspective, is there any movement on being able to ship out of Texas?
No.
Okay. Short answer.
That's okay.
I think again, I'm hoping that we've made some strides this year because of all the goodwill with the sanitizer issue and everything like that. So from what I'm hearing, I think there's going to be a deal made to increase the amount we're allowed to sell. I don't think they're going to allow us to do any shipping yet. That was Discus, which is the big distillery lobbying. They told us this year their main focus was like Sunday sales in Texas. So I think we're gonna this year you'll see the movement towards Sunday sales and the movement towards allowing distilleries to sell more than 2 bottles per person every 30 days. So that's what I'm hoping for, that opens up. The max amount we can sell in a year will open up. So we'll have some of those
At least
fun
some
things.
of those would change, because someone should be able to
never
pick
go
up
and
for the 2.
we won't. Yeah. That's Marcia. Marcia's had to pick up bottles for me before because I already gone through my max. So
it's always good to have that extra person to be able to do that stuff.
So, well, then you'd be able to answer this. This is also maybe another legal question, because somebody was asking me this. So, if I'm out of state as I am, and I buy bottles online from you, but I've bought 4 over the last 7 months, but they're still sitting down there. They've all been purchased. So I could legally pick up all 4 of those at the same time, correct?
no, legally
Those
your wife will be with you when you pick up all 4 bottles. Is legally what will happen.
All right.
You can purchase as many as you want. You can only pick up 2 bottles per person every 30 days. So I have no doubt that your wife or not your wife, sorry.
My 9 adopted family members,
children, cousins, grandmothers, whatnot, all. That's the unfortunate weird thing that we have to deal with on the rules as they sit.
All right. That sucks.
Yeah, Mark asked if He said he's never heard of a 2-bottle limit before, and that's all of Texas. It's all of Texas.
And it's not a liquor store limit; it's only a distillery limit to make sure that the 3-tier system is held up. I've had a lot of, even this last week, a lot of people contact us wanting shipping, and I just have to let them know that the Texas state legislature has determined that shipping of alcohol to consumers, they view that as a danger to society. Except for wine. Wine's totally cool. But beer or liquor is very, very dangerous. So just for all you guys ordering liquor out there, be very, very careful. It's, you never know who you're going to hurt by ordering liquor to your house.
So, but you can, in Texas, you could probably have ammo delivered to your door, right?
Yes, you can actually ship guns too.
Just checking.
Which again, my wife's family owns a gun store, so yeah, they do shipping all the time, which is, you sit there and you just kind of look at stuff and you're like, oh gosh,
Yeah.
guys.
Right. Totally makes sense because nobody ever got drunk off of wine. So
that's true.
Yeah,
this is true.
And Mark, when we were talking about the weird limits, the only place that has a worse limit rule on distilleries is Minnesota. You can buy 1,375 and then you have to leave. It's ridiculous. Can
you just walk in and walk out? Do they allow that?
No. I don't know if it is like you can go in and out, but it's like that's all you can. You can't even get a real normal bottle, and it's just like I don't know if that's actually why one distillery opened in Wisconsin instead of Minnesota. They're like just across the border, and they'll drive from one side to the other because they don't have that stupid rule. So Emily Chambers put in the comments that liquor, it's flammable, which I agree with. I think my favorite story of distilleries starting up in Texas was a story about Treaty Oak. And I think Jonathan, it's one of your favorite stories too.
I don't know how true it is, but it's a great story.
Again, those half truths or flat out lies. I don't know which one it is, but Jonathan, go ahead. And
so there was a failed camel trading route in Austin, Texas. Supposedly the fire marshal went to the guys from Treaty Oak, and the way we heard the story was that Daniel down there, he basically said they were trying to tell him that the low wines were a fire hazard, and he said, "Oh, really?" Lit a match and chunked it into the low wines while they were standing there, and supposedly the fire marshal goes, "I guess not." So, again, I don't know if it's true, but it's a great story. So
one of the legends of Texas whiskey, right there.
It's not recommended to do that. Put that disclaimer out there.
No, man. So yeah, all the fun stuff. I think Weddle early on was asking Jonathan, what's your favorite char and toast profile?
I was just going to bring that up. That was cool.
I think that it's when we're in Texas, I think it's different than if I were to be tasting stuff up in, say, Kentucky. I think that because we are down in Texas and we're in and out of the wood so often, that what we found is that char layer actually has, it's supposed to take things out. That's what it is. It's like a big carbon filter, right? But the fact that we're in and out, when we've had the char 4s side by side with the char 1, we've actually found that it actually took more out of the distillate than we really wanted it to. And so I would say to Mitch that it would depend on where I'm going to be aging this. If I'm going to be aging it in Texas, in Denison right here, I prefer to have a heavy toast profile with the char 1 on there. I think that's going to give me the most bang for my buck flavor-wise, and not remove things that I put there and specifically want there in the distillate when it comes out. Now, to each their own. So it does differ depending on which oak you're using. That just straight up heavy toast char 1 is what I really like in the Euro oak. Now, if I'm going to switch over and go with the American oak, I really do like that wave stay profile. And part of that is because it's so dynamic. When you think about when they go to char that barrel, you got peaks and valleys on those waves, and so those peaks get charred more heavily than the valleys do. and so you get this range of charring, which is kind of a cool thing. It also, for us, it'll actually add a little bit of a smoke character that we had lacking in our whiskey prior to. And so, it's going to be region dependent as where you're going to be aging it, but also species dependent. French oak, I haven't found anything that I would like to do in like a Char 3 on French oak or anything like that. I do like the heavier toast, kind of like I do on the Euro on it. So that's.
Also on the wave stave, for me, the guaiacol character that we get with it on some of the casks is really fun and adds that little bit of smoke that we don't see with some of our other barrels. Now, again, we do have to be careful because the wave stave it has more surface area, so you're dealing with, again, you can get increased extraction. So on those casks, we do have to be very careful with how fast it's extracting. And again, that's where we're going to play a lot with the kind of élevage nature of those, especially on those barrels. We watch them very carefully. So we play a lot with keeping the proof a little bit lower on those casks that really make sure it's getting that wood sugar to balance out anything that would be happening with the increased surface area on the inside of those barrels.
Well, and Independent Stave started making 63-gallon wave stave barrels for us. So that helps kind of manage those. So I've been begging them for years. They just did it for us this last year. And so that was a good thing. So we can help manage those wave stave, still get those flavors we really like, but not have to watch them quite as closely.
Okay.
So we've been using 63 Euro for 2-3 years now.
2-3 years, yeah. I think the oldest ones are about 34 months now. I think on the.
So we've harvested a few.
Yeah.
Nice. And this is gonna be kind of going backwards a little bit, but how much longer till your single malt is ready? Mark's really wondering about this one, and I'm going to say there was 3 other people that I saw comment on it too, so I'm going to ask the question.
We'll lump this in with the when is the brandy going to be ready conversation.
It's only 3 years old right now, so it's gonna take the oldest cask, so it's gonna take a little bit more time. I'll tell you what, there's one barrel that I'm really starting to fall in love with, and it's Jonathan calls it Gunsmoke. It's a little bit funkier, a little bit crazier, but I'd still say it's another couple of years at least for us on single malt. Now,
that one's in a pretty heavily used sherry butt right now, and so it's going to take it a while.
Now, Irish style whiskey is another story. So we've been working on an Irish style for a couple of years because a local pub called the Celt talked Jonathan into it. It wasn't even me this time. Normally I'm the one who gets us in trouble, but I'm like, oh yeah, sure, we'll do that. Cool, that sounds fun. But
I've been wanting to do this for a while anyway.
So that guy should be hitting. I think we'll have their single barrel will be out first, kind of this fall, and then sometime either winter or spring will be because it'll be a little over 3-year-old of an Irish style. It's 60% Texas barley, 40% Irish malt, and triple distilled. It's been aged in used casks exclusively.
Okay.
From us, so it's starting to get pretty fun. That little guy.
So is that one a ways away, or is that one going to be sampled on St. Patrick's Day this year?
I mean, it gets sampled a lot. So.
Ginger leprechauns running around there drinking all the Irish whiskey.
You know why Texas Ingle share is so high, right? It's all the whiskey gingers running around.
Oscar was wondering. He picked up Glendalough, and he's one that was finished in Irish oak. Are you guys planning on doing anything wild or crazy like that with your Irish?
We've got a lot of options in the distillery, and so I think finishing we haven't really discussed fully what we want to do. I know there's
filled one up the other day that was a Sauternes cask rub. I don't know if you knew that. So
with new make,
from new make, yeah. Okay.
That's not gonna be a finish. That's exclusively aged in Sauterne, which should be fun.
I'm still excited about it. My head snapped when you mentioned it.
You can wait with the rest of this because it's going to be a while now.
That's okay. I'm okay with that. No. Oh, go ahead, sir.
There's so many barrels at the distillery right now. I mean, Jonathan just ordered some crazy barrels the other day, which we won't even. I couldn't even. There wines I'd never even heard of that he was ordering casks in of. So we'll see what. I never know. Some things just show up at the distillery half the time, and I'm like, what the hell is this?
Jonathan's like, it has a place. Just leave it there.
Just be quiet and it'll disappear.
We got one more question, and I think I'm going to jump back. We'll start going back over to. Well, I kind of want to go to. What did I end up pouring? The TriBarrel. I jumped up to the TriBarrel next because I wanted to discuss what we discussed between these two. With them, just from it. Before we go to that, Mark was wondering, what are the top 5 crazy ideas that you guys are working on right now?
Oh, that's a good one, Mark.
Oh God.
There you go.
Ooh. I'll do one, John. I'll throw one out there.
Okay.
So for me, probably there are a number of very crazy things at the distillery right now. Probably the craziest,
whiskey related.
Yeah.
No, it could be anything. It could be anything.
That's a whole other. Well, I guess mine's not whiskey technically. The craziest thing in cask right now for me is a really absurd grappa that we made 5 years ago that we've been barrel aging since then. So typically, barrel aged grappa only for a year. They only barrel age it for a year or two, and this is actually going on 5 years now. And it was it was one of those things that came off the still, and we were like, nope, never again, never doing this again. And 5 years later now, with it in cask, because it's actually not only is it in cask, but it's in Balcones rumble barrels.
Oh, okay.
And it has turned into one of the coolest things in the back warehouse right now. I have no idea what we're going to do with it or release or any of those things with it. But it is, there's only one barrel or the equivalent of one barrel of it because we actually barreled it so long ago. Balcones was using 5-gallon barrels still back when they were doing that. So it's crazy. It's pretty crazy.
That was something. Jonathan,
maybe sell 50 milliliter bottles of it.
Jonathan, what's for you the craziest thing in the warehouse right now?
Craziest thing in the warehouse.
It's got it.
We distilled something that it's mostly whiskey. But it actually has some mesquite bean flour in it. So if you take mesquite, I'm not talking about mesquite whiskey as in mesquite wood. This is if you actually take the beans and grind it up into a flour. It's used in cookies and coffee and things like that. It's got a real low glycemic index, and so it is an actual food item. But so a long while back, we distilled something that had some of that flour in it. I don't know what the government's going to actually let me put on the label when we decide to release this. It is delicious, but it tastes like a brandy whiskey hybrid.
Okay. It is 5 years old right now, so it's old for us.
That's probably the weirdest thing in the distillery right now.
God, they both sound exciting as all heck, so I'd be intrigued by them. But let's move over to the TriBarrel, which was your celebration of Harbinger for the year, kind of like Icor was last year, if I'm right. And this one comes in at 63.8%. And with this one, I know we found this one had a really neat kind of dense core of smell. And we found this one where a lot of times we could do, say, a review
in 15, 20 minutes or so. When we got to like the 15-minute mark, I was like, you could easily let this go for another 15 minutes and come back almost every 2 or 3 minutes and start to see some other things come out, or you break past it. It was a really neat whiskey that evolved over time, or you didn't really, flavors didn't change. You just got more, I don't want to say acclimatized, but more of the flavors started to come to fruition over time. So it was really, we found this one to be a really fun one. But with this one, we also played around with the Saints Alley, and we blended these together at the end, like a 50-50 at the end. So whenever in the future here, we just wanted you to kind of toss a little bit of them together and see what you thought of the combination. But first, let's talk about the TriBarrel, because this is 4, 5, and 6-year-old whiskey from the warehouse. So this is some of your older stocks, right?
Yes, some of the oldest. The 6-year-old was barrel number 5, so it was real old for us. And that one in particular was different because at the very beginning we started laying down 100% yellow corn mash bill because we thought that was going to basically be the base flavor that we wanted to lay down and then blend into that. Now, more or less the base in for Harbinger, that's going to be more the purple corn and a Euro oak mash bill. So, but this one we were running them really deep so into tails on that point because we knew they were going to age a long time. We were filling the barrels way up, way higher than we normally do for a 53, and so it was. The intent of it was to make it last up to that 6-year mark when we were going to do it. We have one other barrel in the distillery that was kind of done in that way, and it was barrel number 1. And so that one's going to be the litmus test. We're going to see how old it gets before Rob and I accidentally drink it all. But
it's the Angels, Jonathan, please.
Oh yeah, chubby ginger Angels.
So is this one? Is it equal amounts of 4, 5, and 6-year-old?
It's equal amounts in that it's a barrel of each.
Okay.
So volume wise, I'd have to go back and look at the actual proof gallons on them. Because that 6-year-old was overfilled, it would be pretty similar as far as total volume to the other two. So.
Okay.
I think the other two weren't actually separated by that far. I think it was not the 4-year-old was not quite 5. It was like a few months off, and then the 5-year-old was just a little bit over 5. And so those two were much similar in age and volumes going into it. So
they were about, yeah. I think they were. I think you're right on that. I think the volume, it was only a gallon or 2 difference on them. I think is what it was, Jonathan. Trying to remember
which you can see that kind of variation just from barrel to barrel.
Yeah, I think you said this earlier, Jonathan, describing this. I was looking back at my notes on the TriBarrel, and I had the words dark, brooding, and intense. And that's, I mean, to me, that's exactly
that's
what whiskey is.
Dead on.
Yeah.
So yeah, this one doesn't have any of the French oak in it, but it's got a lot of that kind of vibe, that darkness that I get, like you were talking about, that kind of, I believe you called it mocha kind of flavor earlier. It's got some of that intensity, that darkness to it, and that's two of those barrels were European oak, and one of them we called Dirty Sunshine, or I called it Dirty Sunshine. Everybody else called it Sunshine. But it was up against the wall where the sunlight comes in, and so it's commonly referred to as a honey barrel in the industry. So the sunlight basically would come in the morning and then just heat that guy up. And you can actually tell because the heads on those barrels, when they're a honey barrel, actually are tint different. They do get kind of honeyed in color. But what that meant is when that whiskey, when we pulled it out to check on it after 6 months, we pulled it out and it looked like it was sherried, heavily sherried. And so we actually ended up moving it away from that wall because I was really afraid it was going to get too tannic way too fast because it was already showing signs of a lot of tannin at that 6 months compared to its sister barrels.
Yeah, when you pull samples and you're like, one of these is not like the other.
Yeah.
Well, and that gets kind of part into when we did the blend with this. I was looking to try to get a little more kind of richer, kind of your flavors, a little more density to it, like we were talking with the Saints Alley. But when we did it, you guys kind of already explained this a little bit. It did turn a little more tannic in what it was. It drew a lot of the flavor out of your mouth, and I really liked the combination of them. But it did really heavily turn that way. And you guys said just a lot of times more so because you were going with probably the 4, 5, and 6 in the TriBarrel. It probably leaned that way when you blended them together. So you answered one of the questions we were going to go over. So
that kind of leads into Jonathan's most recent naming adventure. So we had iCore, which again will be coming back at some point, but he was trying to come up with a name that was more of this is the evolution of all the things that we were doing for. We've got a series of finishing casks that will be coming out over the next couple of years here. And he ended up with the very first one, I think is going to be the Armagnac finished Ironroot, which is the intensity of the Armagnac is quite impressive on this. And it is. We had to move over younger whiskey to start finishing it when we did it. So it was a little bit younger than what we typically do when we're making one for Harbinger, just because we knew that tannin level of that gasket oak was just going to be so intense at the end of the day. But Jonathan had named it Apotheosis, which is going to be Ironroot Apotheosis will be the next set. There's going to be Armagnac, and then following that will be what we call Pinot de Charente. So again, when you guys come visit this summer, because you are visiting this summer, I don't know if you know this, but
yeah.
I think we can make that happen.
If I come in full biohazard suits, I'm there.
We'll explore those pretty well. But the full-on Armagnac, it is. We use some very old Armagnac casks for that. I think they were 25-plus-year-old Armagnac cask.
And on the TriBarrel, I think Ben said this. We were doing the review. It was like once you got to a point, it was like a hammer on a piano, like hitting, and like the Armagnac like reverbed for like through the rest of it and through the finish where. It became like this strong underlying note. Like at that point, it was like resonated and just kind of held its own through the end. So,
your 50-50 kind of blend there, is actually a little bit reminiscent of that Apotheosis in the Armagnac barrel.
That's good to hear.
Yeah,
we don't know if it was 50-50. We just tried to like it was just like where the other ones were a little bit slower. That was back to like a rush of flavors. I'm going to go back at it now. But that was like, there's stuff going on, and there's this here, there's that there, and it takes you a second to pick it all out. And I like being stunned like that for a second, or assaulted or shook when you're having a little drink. That's okay every now and then to wake you up.
If you were to take this one and then up it by probably 12 proof, then you'd have Apotheosis at that point.
Wow.
So,
wow.
Yeah.
Okay, so look, everyone,
Nice.
look out for that release when it comes out. Because holy cow,
Yes.
that'll blow your socks off.
So, given that you guys are in Texas, but obviously, but you seem to, at least from my perspective, you seem to be doing things more to mess back with the Texas environment, to get what you want. But I mean, one question is how far do you think you can push that limit? And because you guys have proven that you don't need 8 to 12 years to match the high quality of a good full flavored whiskey. But do you will you just keep going for fun, or do you think there's really a theoretical limit?
I don't think there is a limit. I think that's why Jonathan bought a foeder and brought it over from France to age brandy in. The whole after tasting it after 4 years, Jonathan looked at me and goes, "This SOB is going double digits," was what he told me. And so he brought over a foeder, and we will be releasing some spirits that are over 10 years old We were already planning on it, already preparing for it. Again, part of it is because people tell us we can't do it, that it can't be done with Texas whiskey, and that usually makes Jonathan go, you know what? I'm going to do it anyway. So that's
I
coming.
feel like there's a little bit of a bullshit. I can do it.
I don't know if it's the ginger essence in it.
So, were you the kid growing up, Jonathan? Somebody would say, "Hey, you can't jump off the roof," and you're like, "Watch me."
In Texas, normally they say, "Hold my beer."
Right.
Basically, right before.
No.
This is not a bad blend, guys. I do like this.
Yeah.
It's got some astringency going. It reminded me of biting into a persimmon that wasn't quite ripe yet, and hitting the front of the mouth there. But yeah, it's at the same time, it's like Patrick said. I love that. Love being assaulted like that sometimes.
The tartness right in the face.
Yeah,
I like it.
the tartness was a little bit different than what you're expecting. Like the whole almost through the finish right now, you do get that nice note in there.
There was a good drying pucker factor as we all just tried it. We're like, oh, let's just do this, and we all start drinking it at the same time. We're all like, oh, oh, it was good. We had a good time.
Yeah. But that TriBarrel, you guys still have some of that available, I believe. I think Renita had visited and saw that.
So we do have there are now 3 bottles of it. So because when the
Unclaimed.
one of the fun things about the distillery is Mom sometimes just snatches cases and puts it in her office and then forgets about it. And what the purpose of snatching it was. So we recently had to clean out Marcia's office, and lo and behold, we found a case of whiskey back there. So,
long story short, a pipe broke on the cold liquor tank and flooded out my office, the lab, Marcia's office, the conference room, pretty much everything. And we found some whiskey when that happened. So.
I like that. She has her own personal stash of stuff she likes hidden away.
Yes.
You're upset it all disappeared.
The Ark in this case.
That's just the stuff she let you find. Does she have more stuff stashed at home?
Oh yeah. All right.
I was gonna say, I'm like, I can see my parents like trying to do like the little list of everything that came out and like having a bottle of it on the wall. I'm like, that could take a lot from you guys. You guys release a lot of stuff in a year. You need a hell of a wall.
Most of the stuff she hoards away is Armagnac, I think. Like, we've got a heck of an Armagnac collection, but I have no idea where it's at.
She's got her own secret stash going.
Uh-huh. She does.
You would be amazed about what she puts up there. She said she likes stuff, and then it just disappears.
Hearing that, I'm glad you got that Armagnac bottle and it didn't just disappear.
Yeah.
Well, I have no idea where it is now. I got to taste it.
There were samples poured for him when he got there that day.
Yeah.
All right, now let's do. We're an hour in, and we don't want to keep you too long, but let's talk about your Hubris Hazmat. Because is that one still available at the distillery, or is that one all gone now?
That one's gone, I think.
Okay.
So there was
I
only
have a bottle at the distillery.
Yeah. Well, if you got one and ordered it, it is at the distillery still. But as far as found ones, I don't think we found any in any offices during the great flood of 2021.
But fair warning, again, the rule as it goes, we will hold it for 1 year. And then after that, Marcia drinks it. So that's the other.
It goes the way of Armagnac.
Yeah.
It sounds like Marcia has a private party sometime in the middle of the year that no one knows about that I would like to be invited to.
Just show up in Denison in July and see what happens.
Yeah, the Mother of Texas Whiskey Party.
I can get behind that.
Yeah.
But yeah, let's jump up to this one because it was. Now I know you want to go on scale. We could do the normal hubris, but this one's at 70%. So this one was
a bit of a monster in ABV, which isn't bad, because when we were having it, I believe we thought it was drinking more at the 50 or sub 50 range when we were actually having it, which was lovely scary until it kind of hopped up on me an hour later after we were done shooting a few reviews. And all of a sudden I'm sitting on the couch. I'm like, why am I getting so warm? What happened? And I was like, oh yeah, I did drink a bunch of that tonight. That's on me. I did this to myself.
Yeah, you can see my bottle is empty.
Yeah. That one will put you in a headlock pretty quick.
Yeah.
So when I first found this barrel, I was going through things for Hubris, and I ran it. We have a machine called an Anton Par that tells us out to 3 decimal places what the proof is. And so I kind of pulled a sample, tasted it. I was like, that's pretty good. Let's see where we need to start dropping it for the Hubris release, which is, that one just shy 118 mark. And so I ran it through the Anton Par, and it said 140 something, 140 and change. And so I was like, that can't be right. So I ran it again, and I was like, Anton Par's broken again. I was like, this thing, it's expensive to fix this guy. And so I was like, oh goodness, I don't even want to tell Robert and Marsha the Anton Par's not working. And so I just kind of had a thought. I was like, what if let's just run something else through there. So I ran Harbinger through there, and it was dead on 115. And I was like, so I started going through all the other barrels for Harbinger or for Hubris this year, and that was the only one that cleared the 70% mark. All the other ones were like 136 proof and up, but not quite up to that 140 mark. And so we decided that barrel tasted good enough that we were going to let it ride at that hazmat level, and everybody else was going to get blended together and proofed out. So good news, Anton Par's not broken.
John was wearing the little $3,000 handheld.
No, this is the desktop. It's
a $16,000 desktop.
Yeah. And it's heavy enough. It costs like $300 for us to ship it in. So that's just
the $3,000 one isn't accurate enough for the government to allow us to use it for taxes.
But apparently, using a hydrometer is. So.
Yeah. Eyeballing a hydrometer or a $16,000 desktop.
Tax dollars at work.
Only 2 ways to do it.
That sounds like government right there.
Yes. So you guys recently or last few months brought on a new intern. How's your intern going? And is intern going to be working for you full time at some point?
Yeah, well, he's working out slowly but surely. He's got a new office, so. No, actually, so John and Marcia sold their house in Illinois, and so they're actually in the process of moving. So which is good. So they decided to go into a loft downtown Denison. So kind of change of pace for what they're doing. They're going to be low maintenance people, so I can have them do high maintenance here at the distillery. But yeah, no, he's John's going to be here pretty much full time helping out. I think he enjoys it quite a bit, so he's looking forward to it, and we enjoy having him here, even though we still have to show him the ropes.
Does he have a knack for anything?
He talks a lot. He's really good at chatting with people.
He really likes to do sales, which is good. He loves to talk to people at the door. He loves to taste people on whiskey and talk whiskey. Although his main focus on talking whiskey is Ironroot solely. So
he's one of our biggest cheerleaders.
He's a proud dad. Yeah.
Yeah. When you're having a down day, he's one of the best people cheering you up. So it's pretty special having him around, and again, now seeing as this thing that we created become an actual business, it's been pretty special to be able to share that with him.
That's cool.
Yeah, that is. So being able to have that is pretty special. And we've seen some other people do something very similar where they get to bring that in and kind of give a little bit of that family tie back to it and stuff, where it makes it a little bit more, I don't know, a little bit more of a touch, and like you said, a little bit more enjoyable throughout the day at points.
And he's one of the goofiest guys I know, so that doesn't hurt either.
But yeah, you guys have, the whole set we've had here has all been excitingly good and uniquely different. The hazmat just, I think I was just surprised about how far under the proof it drank. That's the part where like you could have friends over and they'd think it's a bottled and bond, and then 3 drinks later you have to be concerned about them for a little bit. or maybe you do that on purpose. I have done that on purpose at a few events too. You're like, you need to have this tonight. What do you mean? I'm like, I just you need to go down this path. It's okay. But yeah, what do you guys have coming up this year? Now, wait, there was one other thing I know at the distillery. Were you guys expanding? I don't know if it was seating inside or was it seating outside with like a little event space?
So there was a front porch that we had where there was an overhang.
Okay.
And that is getting closed in, and that's becoming the new bar tasting room, because the old one, and we are actually installing a bottling line this year because my mom said I'm way too slow at bottling, and therefore she decided to automate my job out from under me on that one. So so we are putting in a bottling line to help us keep up with demand this year, and so we are replacing the tasting room, place to buy bottles, all that kind of stuff. That will be again, it should be another kind of 6 to 8 weeks, I think, before the shell and everything's set up. I think it will be probably a few more months after that before we actually get the bar up and running, because I think Jonathan's going to be stealing some of that space for just barrel room space this year. So, you may come up to the distillery expecting this beautiful new tasting room, and it's just going to be full of barrels and
beautiful new barrel warehouse.
You know what? You'd be surprised how many people would probably be happy just walking into that the way it was. It's a barrel warehouse. It's a barrel warehouse and a bar. This is perfect. We had someone else that was toying with this idea. Since you're going to have the barn, even though it would be a ways away, are you thinking of having like a barrel, even if it were maybe like a small barrel that you could tap when you're in there for drinks or samples or something?
We will be doing and again, this is a little bit down the line, but we will be doing like a bottle of your own, where Jonathan will be choosing a barrel, and it will be aging up until the moment that you pull the lever and fill your bottle with it. Cool. So he's got I know, and again, I have to brag on him. He's got a couple of really fun casks and stuff he's setting up for that. So I can't wait to see what that fully looks like when he's done with it.
When do you think that's going to be?
He's trying to plan his trip. That's all he's doing. He's trying to plan the trip.
There's a trip in my future.
My gut is probably winter this next year, winter 2021.
All
right. It's 2 trips, Mike. It's 2 trips.
That's 2, 3, 4 trips, whatever it is. It's
just come hang out.
Yeah, I'll do it.
Or you could be like Patrick Cohn, and you'll start drinking at our place, and then you'll just never leave. So
I could do that too.
When I saw him doing bottling, I questioned if him and Josh and Gretchen just slept overnight. It looked like you guys went through quite a few. I think it was back around Thanksgiving or something, where they stopped out for like a weekend and just did that.
There's that thing when you kidnap people and then they just kind of start really liking you after that. Kind of like that. No,
I don't think you're supposed to say that out loud. I
will tell you, this last year, the Galladays and Patrick Cohn have been so instrumental to literally us existing this last year. One, it's having those good friends and supporters be there to.
Yes.
Sure. I have to. I mean, it's one of those things that Josh, Gretchen, and Patrick came in the summer when we were running so behind hitting deadlines for bottling, and took vacation and came to the distillery and helped us out. I can't tell you how much that meant. And then on top of that, then we got to go do a lake day with everybody, which was really, really, really fun. But last year would not have been the success it was without Patrick and Josh and Gretchen.
Have you thought about doing like volunteer nights or something like Ranger Creek does?
Jonathan?
We thought about it, yeah. So
Jonathan,
Put you on the spot.
it would be increasingly difficult with COVID and all the things happening for us to be able to kind of do that currently. We talked about it in the past. Our process was really slow compared to where we're going to be here, hopefully in another month. And so you only need about 3 or 4 people really working and being able to do it. And if they know what they're doing, it can go faster than if I had 20 people standing there. And it's because a lot of it was just very, very manually intensive. So that's, my daughter was really good at it. So but she, had to go to school.
Really what it's about. He just wanted to put his children to work.
So, you laugh. Danica can outpace you on labeling.
Why do you think the bottling line exists now?
That's right. Yeah.
If she didn't have to go to school, we wouldn't need a bottling line, Jonathan. That's what it comes down
that's
to.
right. Now, she was helping Patrick.
Child labor laws be damned.
She's our best bottler, damn it.
So, what's the demand been on you guys since Harbinger won the Bourbon of the Year award? I mean, have things just tremendously ratcheted up?
We sold out of whiskey last year in October. We had nothing left to give the last 3 months of the year. This year, Jonathan has done a really wonderful job of rationing out whiskey this year. But it's one of those things that even though, again, we will have more whiskey this year to sell than we did last year, it's all been pre-purchased. So it's been really difficult with, I love doing single barrels and love bringing people in, picking through. And it's people calling right now. I'm having to tell them, well, what does the end of 2022 look like for you for single barrels? So it's one of those things I never would have believed that awards and stuff. Anyway, I knew they had impact, but the level of impact that this one had was so crazy that it.
Part of the biggest problem we have is that we were actually really good at forecasting. And so because we were really good at forecasting early on, we were actually selling everything that we were making or really wanted to move out the door prior to that actually happening. So once we won that award, all of a sudden everything after that was kind of gravy on top of it, but it was also things that we hadn't planned for at all. So the whiskey that won that award, we made when we were 2 years old, which meant that we had just really started tasting our own kind of finished product at that point in time, or what our whiskey was going to kind of taste like when it was aged up. And so we had no idea that we needed to be making more at that point in time. And so, we put out as much as we possibly could last year. We're going to do the same this year without sacrificing any quality or things like that. So age statement. I'm forever the defender of the liquid. So Robert would be like, we need to do this. And I'm like, no, we're not going to do that.
So have you started to amp up your production since that's happened for this over this last year, or probably not this past year with all the bullshit? Is there plans for that?
Last year we ran hard, really hard. But
this year is going to be even harder, unfortunately.
Yeah, so we've been slowed down a little bit. We've been replacing some equipment and doing some things. We're still trying to tweak those to get them running optimally. And so once that gets going, we're going to be running really hard again. One of the limitations we have here is the barrel warehouse is only so large. And a couple of years back, we actually purchased another building, and it's going to get set up for putting more barrels in that site than we actually have on site here. Kind of the downside to that is we ended up doing the expansion here kind because we needed to for the bottling line and things like that. So it's taking away from us getting that done. So ideally, we'd have that site done, this site done, everything done, and then we could just fill it up, and then I could go home.
Are you guys at the point where you're at capacity at the still, where you think about getting another one, or?
Technically, we can basically fill up this entire warehouse in a year if we wanted to with just the one still we've got. So and that would be if it was completely empty, we could fill it up. So still capacity isn't really more the issue for us. It's more on the warehouse side. If we were going to make any improvements, it'd probably be on the mashing side before it was on the distillation side.
All right. Now, is there anything else, any releases coming up this year that you want to tell people about before we let you go back to work for Jonathan, because he hasn't left the distillery yet, and Robert has to show up early. So we'd like you both to get back to your normal lives at some point. But what do you guys have coming up this year that are some pretty sweet releases? What are some of them that are planned?
I mean, the Apotheosis, that's going to be coming up this year, which is going to be the Armagnac finish, and then the Pinot de Charente a little bit later in the year. Again, one of the things I'm really excited about, I get to bottle actually probably the next week or so, is Jonathan did a couple single barrel selection kind of in October this last year of some of the older barrels. So there'll be some much older single barrels coming from us in the end of February, which will be pretty exciting for us to see those. I've been waiting for those to come out for like 5 months now because they're sometimes you just get some of those barrels that are just like they make me stand back. I'm like, okay, well that's not normal, and just I don't know. I just fall in love with some of the barrels. So there's a number again two of those barrels will be coming out here pretty soon.
The very end of the year, we should have a special Harbinger that is finished be coming out.
Oh, I forgot about that big project. Oh, Jesus.
The marketing guy.
I'm gonna get yelled at for that one. So we have this connection with cognac, right? So
Yes.
one of the distilleries we've formed a really, really wonderful relationship with is Pierre Ferrand. And so when Marcia and I went over to France a couple of years ago, they actually put us up in their chateau while we were there, which again, terrible, very, very awful experience that was. And
now he wants a chateau.
Now I want a chateau. So we formed this really great relationship. And so last year they approached us about doing a barrel exchange. And so we're going to be doing some rum casks from their plantation series of some of the
Fiji rum.
And Jonathan chose a really, really funky, fun rum that they do from Fiji. And we're going to be doing a finish kind of over the summer of some of Harbinger in those, and they'll be released kind of in the end of the year. And then in exchange, they actually get Harbinger barrels, and they're going to be aging rum in Harbinger barrels, and we'll be releasing rum from Harbinger casks. So
Nice.
yeah.
Oh man.
Nice. I like to see how that'll turn out. That'll be pretty sweet. But before we go, I just want to tell everyone that next Monday night we have another An Evening With series. We'll be talking with Todd Leopold from Leopold Brothers out in Colorado, and we'll be learning a whole lot from him as well again. So make sure you stop in then. Robert, Jonathan, I can't thank you guys enough for taking time out of your day, coming over here and answering some questions from us and from the people in the chat. We always have a really good time, and you guys are always creating such consistent releases. Like everything that you guys do is usually very good, if not better than that. So I was good. Well, I mean, that sounds dumb, but I mean, there are some places where they might have one or two things that are like, okay, this is always good, but everything else seems to be weird, and you don't know how that works out. But everything you guys put out is of a high quality,
And it's just neat to see the different flavor profiles that you guys can get out of what you're doing. So we appreciate what you're doing, and thank you for spending some time with us.
Well, thanks for having us.
No,
Yeah.
we appreciate it.
Anytime.
Yeah, anytime you guys have coming up.
And we're just going to hop in randomly now.
If we do have people that do that.
Yeah.
So if you ever do, you can just like hit the little messenger thing to me, and I typically will give you like, oh, that's how Nancy Fraley's been on like 5 times. She just randomly shows up, like we did Wyoming. She's like, I think I'm going to come on that stream. I'm like, well, I'm not going to argue with you. Yeah. I'm like, maybe I want to let Dave know, but you can do whatever you want on our show. You have free reign, ma'am.
Alan
Bishop
likes
does
to
it too,
drop
but
in.
in a different way.
You never know when Nancy's going to show up.
That's right.
That is true.
No one suspects Nancy Freeman.
That's right. She's the Winston Wolf, man. We love it.
Nancy Fraley.
The Spanish Inquisition is really what she is.
Yeah, Mike's right. We do think of her as like the Winston Wolf of whiskey. Just do what I say. Everything will be fine.
We're here sitting here talking about it, and she actually called me earlier today, talking to me about some samples they're exchanging. I don't know. I don't know. It's always fun talking with her. Oh, God.
Yeah. She's awesome.
So, like we said, thank you for coming on. We really appreciate it. Thank you, everyone in the chat, for stopping out, and we will see you again next week. And remember, until then, it's not the size of the den that matters. It's the love of whiskey. Cheers, everyone.
Cheers.
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 Let's get into it. 1, 2, 3.